Hello and welcome to this episode of South West Londoner News. I'm Phoebe Southworth.
And I'm Sam Hawthorne. Our main stories tonight. Voting is underway in the Richmond Park and North Kingston by-election as Zac Goldsmith battles Liberal Democrat Sarah Olney for the seat he vacated.
Battersea Dogs and Cats Home have launched an appeal for unwanted blankets to help keep the dogs they house warm during the winter months.
We spoke to a South West London MP about the role of women in politics.
And finally, a new scheme in Croydon aims to boost the local economy.
First up, voters have turned out for the Richmond Park by-election after Zac Goldsmith vacated his seat in order to run independently, following the Conservatives' decision to expand Heathrow. With 70% of constituents voting to remain in this year's Brexit referendum, Sarah Olney has pledged to vote against triggering Article 50 should she win the by-election. Brexit and Heathrow expansion remain contentious issues in this vote, with polls predicting a close race between Mr Goldsmith and the Liberal candidate. Jenny Desborough has been speaking to voters in Richmond Town Centre.
Today, weeks of campaigning, debating and canvassing come to a close as the constituents of Richmond Park come together to vote for their new representative in Parliament. The by-election was triggered by the resignation of Zac Goldsmith, a former Conservative who is now standing as an independent candidate against the Liberal Democrat Sarah Olney and the Labour Party's Christian Walmer, among others. Zac Goldsmith served the constituency for 6 years as a Conservative MP and now hopes to represent them as an independent candidate. Before being elected in 2010, he pledged that if the Conservatives approved the Heathrow expansion, he would resign. He has pegged this by-election a referendum on Heathrow, and his main pledge is to continue with the fight to stop the expansion. This was a key issue for residents voting today.
So, I live quite near to here and I'm underneath the Heathrow arrival path, and so every evening in the small hours the planes come over and they wake me up. So that's certainly a big issue for me.
I think the election should be focused on Heathrow because that was what it was all about. It was calling a by-election, a man who kept his word, and about the problems that we're all going to have if Heathrow is expanded.
I'd like Richmond to be a quieter borough. It's a lovely place to live and people are very much aware of that, and we don't want to spoil it, and that's all I think.
Another issue underpinning the by-election is the recent Brexit vote. Liberal Democrat candidate Sarah Olney said she will have a personal mandate to vote against triggering Article 50. She is backed by former Lib Dem leader Nick Clegg and is considered a frontrunner along with Zac Goldsmith. Labour's candidate Christian Walmer also stated that he would oppose official talks on the UK's separation from the EU.
It's difficult because Brexit is a much bigger issue than just party politics, because it's about the future direction of the country. Whether this by-election will have that much of an effect, I don't know. I don't know which way it will go, but clearly, if in fact the Liberal Democrat Party do have a victory here, that will send a message to the Prime Minister and the Conservative Party. That's clear. Whether that will have any longer-term effect on the way in which we now decide how we leave the European Union, I think is a very difficult issue to answer. The one thing I would say is I doubt very much whether there will be a second referendum.
I think the Lib Dems have tried to campaign on a Brexit issue, but Brexit is done and dusted, and although Richmond did vote to remain, I don't think Richmond people are now bothered about that because that's been and gone.
I voted to remain, but I recognise now that there's democracy and the majority of people voted actually to come out, and we now have to try the best we can to make it work. So this election shouldn't have been focused on it.
Richmond has always been a very open and tolerant place. It may not seem like it to the outside, but actually it's a long tradition here of, we have a lot of almshouses, a lot of charities and that sort of thing. People are concerned about more issues than just the local issues that affect them daily. They're concerned about other people as well. So the kind of society that we live in matters to people here.
In the 2015 general election, Zac Goldsmith won the constituency with 59% of the vote. However, it is widely expected that this by-election will have a much closer result.
And the results are expected to be announced in the early hours of tomorrow morning. Battersea Dogs and Cats Home have launched an appeal asking the public to donate unwanted blankets in order to help keep the dogs warm during winter months. The home, which has been running since 1860, provides shelter to more than 8,000 cats and dogs every year, many of which find new homes. Our reporter, Kyle O'Sullivan, has been speaking to Taryn Pinky, the rehoming officer at the shelter.
The cold weather affects all of us, including the dogs who are cared for here at Battersea Dogs and Cats Home. This month, the home has launched a campaign urging people to donate blankets to keep their residents warm. We've come down to Battersea today to meet some of the dogs affected and see how the blankets will help them this winter. I spoke to dog rehoming and welfare leader Taryn Pinky to find out more about the reason behind the scheme and what people can do to help.
Battersea's launching our blanket donation campaign because we have found ourselves quite short of blankets this winter, and obviously with the temperatures plummeting we are really in need of some blankets to keep all our dogs nice and warm, and at the moment we don't have enough to provide them with all the blankets that they need. There's much more need for blankets at this time of the year because of the cold. Obviously the dogs get much colder, and now that it's getting below freezing at night we really do need to keep them nice and cosy. Also, we found that we've not had as many donations this year as we have beforehand, so it's pretty much the same as we've always had every year, a need for blankets, but unfortunately this year we found that we've not had as many donated. We need as many blankets as we can get. We really don't mind, as many as people can give us. And we've got about over 200 dogs here at the moment that are in need, but we also have dogs in our other sites as well. With some of our very nervous dogs, we do send them home with a blanket so that it smells like them when they get home, and for the car ride as well. The dogs that really feel the cold the most here are the very young dogs or the very old, and of course the skinnier breeds such as the greyhounds or the whippets as well, and they're the ones that really need a lot of padding as well when they're sitting in their bed.
This is Rocco, a 2-year-old greyhound who at 80 days is currently one of the London Centre's longest stay dogs. Rocco, who is particularly susceptible to the cold because of his breed, is among more than 200 dogs at Battersea who are in desperate need of blankets with freezing cold temperatures expected this winter.
The kind of blankets that we're looking for are any sort of old, or new blankets, but the only things that we can't accept are things like duvets, because they tend to clog our washing machines up, and any pillows as well is something that we can't take. Cats, of course, get given blankets as well. They feel the cold too. We tend to have a lot of knitted blankets for our cats that come from our supporters. And what we found this year is that we have quite a lot of cat blankets and much less dogs. So that's why this year we're particularly focusing on the dogs. But of course, we'd be more than happy to accept cats' blankets as well. People can donate the blankets by dropping them off at our London reception, where we'll be more than happy to take them. To get more information about Battersea in general, you can always find that on our website, and that'll direct you into how to register with us and how you can rehome from us, as well as donating and buying presents for our dogs. You can also find our blanket campaign on there, as well as on our social media, such as our Facebook page and Twitter as well.
Let's hope dogs like Rocco and his friends get the blankets they need so they are not left out in the cold this winter. Kyle O'Sullivan for SW Londoner at Battersea.
97 years ago today, Nancy Astor made history by becoming the first woman to take her seat in Parliament. Our reporter Rose Knight has been speaking to Siobhan McDonough, Mitcham and Morden MP, about Nancy's legacy and the role of women in politics.
She was a notorious women's rights advocate and successfully campaigned for Parliament to raise the drinking age to 18. On this day, in 1919, she would change the face of British politics forever, becoming the first female MP to sit in Parliament.
Nancy Astor was born in Danville, Virginia in 1879 before she moved to Britain as a child. Astor held her seat for 26 years until she was encouraged by her husband to retire in 1945. We spoke to Siobhan McDonough, Mitcham and Morden MP, to discuss the journey that British women in politics have been on over the last 97 years.
Nancy Astor was elected 97 years ago today. Clearly her election was a watershed. It allowed women to come behind her, to stand for election. Being the first is always hard. I think perhaps our problem has been that once Nancy broke through that barrier, it was a while before, women from the trade unions or who working women actually managed to become MPs. But she was the first. She broke through the glass ceiling, and we must be grateful to all those suffragettes, known and unknown, who spent the first decade and a half of the 20th century fighting for the right of women to vote and stand for Parliament. I'm sometimes not sure how gender discrimination has impacted upon me as a woman in politics, because sometimes you only appreciate it in retrospect. I got elected in 1997 with 101 other Labour women, women around about my age, women who'd been in politics for a long time, and I have a huge support group. One male MP once said to me, Siobhan, I'm really jealous because, you know, you're always with your friends, they're very supportive of you. For men, you know, you only tend to have that camaraderie when you go to the pub. I think there is still an awful lot of barriers to women becoming involved. There is the fact that you're up there and you're out there, in that it's your name on the ballot paper, and we are kind of taught not to be those people out in front. We're kind of more comfortable with being behind, doing work behind the scenes, so I think there's still that issue. I also think a 24-hour media society that we live in can be very hard on politicians, and particularly unforgiving of women. You know, do you stick with yourself and your female virtues, or do you try to become more like a man? I just think you are damned either way. Parliament already looks entirely different to how it was when I was first elected in 1997. With hardly any Conservative women, no Liberal Democrat women, and 101 Labour women. So it does look different. Progress is being made. But I think if we are not always up and at it, we can easily slide back.
I think when we think about what's happened in the 97 years since Nancy Astor became an MP and became a member of the House of Commons, I think we have to think that a lot's changed and nothing has changed. So we've got to hold those two ambiguous thoughts in our heads. In a sense, obviously, there are more women MPs. We've had 2 women Prime Ministers. But on the other hand, there's still the lasting point that women are a minority of the House of Commons.
So we've come a long way in the last 97 years since Nancy Astor was elected to sit in the Houses of Parliament. But we've still got a long way to go. We're looking forward to having a 50-50 gender split in Parliament, and hopefully one day Labour will have their first female leader.
A new business scheme has been launched in Croydon, which aims to help residents share in the economic prosperity experienced by the borough in recent years. Our reporter, Nick Tyrrell, spoke to Councillor Mark Watson and a Croydon business owner about the potential benefits of this scheme.
Croydon has witnessed major changes over the past few years, with many new developments coming to the borough. But how can it be ensured that these benefits extend to local businesses and residents? We caught up with Councillor Mark Watson to find out about the Croydon Good Employer Charter, which aims to further stimulate the town's economy.
Well, we've decided to bring in a Good Employers Charter, one because Croydon is experiencing enormous growth at the moment. We're one of the fastest growing economies in the country, huge amount of investment coming into Croydon over the next 5 to 10 years. But we want to make sure all our residents benefit from that growth, and all of our businesses that work in Croydon and want to come to Croydon, we want to retain and recruit new employers in Croydon that meet our values. So we want those benefits of the growth to be shared with everybody. We want people to use local supply chains to put their business back into Croydon, support the local businesses here, and we want them to be inclusive employers. So we've set a whole scheme of what is best practice as an employer in Croydon.
One of the first members of the new charter is My Outspace, a business centre designed to support female entrepreneurs in Croydon. We spoke to founder Juliana Topazli about the importance of the new initiative.
The scheme will benefit our business, I think, in several ways. First of all, it's always good to be seen as a good employer, especially when there will be certain standard or a charter in place. Our employees will understand that My Outspace is a responsible employer. We care about London living wage. We understand the issues around diversity and equality, which are very important to us because we work with parents in the borough in particular. And I think it shows other businesses as well that we are aspire to be good employers, and we would like to build the teams around us who really see the same vision as we do.
A key aspect of the Good Employers Charter is that members use local goods and services, which in turn benefits Croydon's economy.
We only employ locally. We work with a lot of local councils, local charities. All our suppliers in terms of trainers, mainly, but also office supplies, etc. Everybody is local. And we encourage all the businesses we work with and support also to use the local supply chains.
There's more money in the local economy, people are spending more money locally, that supports the local businesses, that creates more jobs, there's more people spending money, that creates more culture, that attracts more businesses in, it makes it a much better place to work, it makes the economy a lot stronger, and it's much fairer for all of our residents.
Being in Croydon for the last 10 years, I've really seen a shift from something which has been a myth of South London, you know, the place where people don't really want to go to. Over the years, it's changed in such a positive way. There's lots of regeneration, lots of businesses coming in. But there's also more smiles on the streets, which is great to see. And I think we, as a community, as a business community, need to do more to put Croydon on the map and saying it is a great place to live, it's a great place to work, it's also a great place to do business.
Thank you for watching.
And from everyone here at the South West Londoner News team, good night.
Good night.